Welcome back to Morning Scramble. I am AZTV Sports Director Eric Cohen, and pleased to be joined for today's Monday morning sports segment by all things Suns social and digital media, Greg Esposito. You can find him on Twitter at Espo. We're going to get to the Suns, but first let's talk about the Cardinals. The Cardinals came back in the second half yesterday to beat the Browns. Really an ugly performance in the first half. It made me wonder, is this really a Super Bowl caliber team?
Well, I don't know. I don't think we know yet because they really haven't beaten anybody of quality yet in terms of opponents. Their two losses came against teams that, the Rams, they're all right. The Steelers are okay, but they didn't have Ben Roethlisberger when the Cardinals lost to him. I think we need to see them play a high caliber opponent and really handle them before we can actually say whether they're a Super Bowl contender or not. Their record's great, but we don't know yet.
I would have thought Green Bay would run away with the NFC before last night's game against Denver when they were downright awful and Aaron Rodgers couldn't even get to 100 yards passing. Let's talk about running back Chris Johnson. The Cardinals found him off basically the scrap heap this offseason. Yeah. It was the first back-to-back 100-yard rusher for the Cardinals in how long?
Since 2006. Edgerrin James was the last guy to do it for the Cardinals. And this is becoming the hallmark of GM Steve Keim. He's finding guys right before training camp who a lot of people have given up on. They come in and they become impact players.
Do you think Chris Johnson is worthy of a long-term contract, or is this just a kind of a flash-in-the-pan, one-year wonder type thing?
I guess it depends on what your definition of a long-term contract is, because should they extend him maybe another year, another two, where the money is minimal that you're guaranteeing him? Probably, but he's a 30-year-old running back who, that's usually the watershed mark where these guys kind of fall off the edge. And this may be the last gasp for Chris Johnson, but it's been pretty fun to watch.
All right, speaking of extensions or not extensions, boy, it has just been brutal in college football here in Arizona. Our Wildcats, got killed in Washington, lost 49-3. ASU had a great performance against Oregon and then couldn't finish it off in triple overtime. What's going to happen with these teams the rest of the year? Will U of A win another game, and how many more will ASU win of their next four?
Well, I think both of these teams are kind of like the show Homeland. You watch the first few seasons with these coaches, you're super entertained, but then you realize there's not a whole lot of substance to it. I think we're at that point with both Rich Rod and Todd Graham. Both of these guys had big aspirations coming into the season. There was national championship talk in both cities, and now we've seen neither team can really play defense. They're both struggling mightily. And there's rumors in Tucson that Rich Rod might not be around that long.
So make a prediction. First of all, who will win the Territorial Cup? And secondly, will either of these teams undergo a major coaching shift?
Well, I wish that ties were something that's still happening in college football, because I predict that, because it's always, when it comes to Territorial Cup, it's the thing you least expect to happen. But I think ASU winds up pulling it out. I feel like Todd Graham's going to wind up winning it. I know as Wildcats, it's tough for us to say. I think Rich Rod's gone, though. I think he's going to leave.
I do, too. Good call on that. All right, let's talk about a team that I just don't understand, because I saw your Suns, your Phoenix Suns on Wednesday night in person, and they were terrible, and they come back and sweep Portland this weekend. Are you surprised?
Well, look, you've got 7 new guys on this roster. You're trying to figure out how all these pieces fit. Game 1, they got in foul trouble early. The starters, Tyson Chandler, Markieff Morris, both got in foul trouble very early. You couldn't get a rhythm. Next 2 nights, they found that offensive rhythm. On Saturday, the backcourt of Brandon Knight and Eric Bledsoe came up big. They had 60 of the 101 points for the team. They looked really good. That's going to be the key to the season. How do those two guys play? And I think you saw the potential of it start to unfurl on Saturday.
All right, Steve Nash had his jersey retired, or his number retired at Talking Stick Arena on Friday. Is he the best player in Suns history?
I'm a Barkley guy. I grew up here in the 90s. I love Barkley, but I think it's 1A, 1B, and you can go either way. I'm not going to argue with anybody if they say Steve Nash over Charles Barkley. The longevity of Nash in Phoenix, what he was able to do, the fact that he was on the trash heap when they brought him in. Dallas said he was done. Mark Cuban wasn't willing to pay him back in 2004 when the Suns brought him in. If he was done, 2 MVPs and changing the game of basketball was pretty impressive.
All right, rapid fire. The Royals won the World Series late last night, for those of you that didn't stay up to make it before we had earthquakes. Who's going to win it next year? My Cubbies?
Sure. Why don't we go the Cubs? Why not? I mean, you said it like a true Cubs fan.
So American Pharoah won the Breeders' Cup Classic. He won the Triple Crown this summer and the Breeders' Cup Classic. Is this the greatest career of any athlete in our time?
No. Really? You're going to ask that question? That's
I'm
not
just
even
saying.
You should throw that piece of paper away. That's not even a worthy question.
I'm just telling you, American Pharoah, what a brilliant performance, the best horse of our lifetime. Coming up next, we have Group Scoop. Stay tuned on the Morning Scramble.